Hi, my name is Noontime Shadows Cosplay, and I'm here to tell you about how I made one of my most favorite cosplay pieces. My Tamatoa hook. First, I should clarify that when I say Tamatoa hook, I mean Maui's magic fish hook from Disney's Moana. It just happened that I was cosplaying Tamatoa and he was in possession of it for a while. Now I will begin by going over the supplies needed for this particular tutorial. You will need a pencil, butcher paper, insulation foam. I bought my foam from Home Depot. The size I picked was 4 foot by 8 foot and it was 1 inch thick. There are other thicknesses you can choose, and if you go with something else, you can make adjustments to these instructions pretty easily. A craft blade or a power saw. While making this hook, I used a craft blade to cut everything out, but on other props since then, I've been using a power saw. Whatever you choose, please use caution and don't hurt yourself. You'll need wood glue, a foam shaver. I picked this one up for very cheap at Home Depot. It's a bit like a cheese grater and works very well for shaping foam props. Sandpaper, wood filler. I bought plastic wood filler from Home Depot. A wood burner, mine is from Joann's. Paint in whatever color you want your hook to be, and then paint for detailing. I chose various shades of brown. Paint sealer, hot glue, and rope. The rope I use on the handle is 1/4 inch Fab Lab brand rope. Now that we know what we will need, I'll go over the process. Unfortunately, I had no idea I'd be making a tutorial of any kind, so I don't have videos from making the hook, but I do have a lot of pictures. I started out by cutting a piece of butcher paper for my template. I freehanded the hook shape after looking at some photos from the movie. Make sure your hook is no more than 2 feet wide and 4 feet long, or it won't fit on the foam pieces correctly. Trust me, that size hook is big enough. I cut out my template and I cut my foam into 4 pieces, so that I had 4 foam rectangles that were 4 foot by 2 feet, which is what I just said not to make the hook bigger than. Then I traced the hook onto each of the pieces and began cutting them out with my craft blade. You can see a size comparison here. The hook is almost as big as me, so even if you're really tall, this hook will work for you. And here you can see my 4 pieces all cut out. Remember, I used 1 inch thick foam, so that means the hook will be about 4 inches thick. I used my wood glue and layered my pieces together, kind of like a cake, and set it aside to dry for a few days. You should wait at least 24 hours, but sometimes it takes longer because of little pockets of glue on the inside taking longer to dry. Once the glue was dry, I began using my foam shaver to even out the shape. When I was cutting out the pieces, they weren't exactly perfect, so the foam shaver helps fix that, and you can see the difference here. Once it was even, I began shaping the hook and removing any of the harsh corners except for the few that were supposed to be there. You can see the edges are becoming more rounded. And the hook is now taking on a pointed shape. You can also see in this photo the foam shaver leaves things looking a little fuzzy and ragged, but we will fix that. Once you are done shaping, use your sandpaper to smooth out the hook as much as you can. But if there are still uneven bits and imperfections, that's fine. Because we're going to cover all the bits that need fixing and smoothing with wood filler, and we will let that set for 24 hours and then sand it smooth. Then you'll do the same with the other side. Once you finish sanding, you'll trace on the designs. I even added a few hidden Mickeys to my design. When the designs are all traced, you'll go over the lines with your wood burning tool. Go slowly and cautiously. The foam will want to melt quickly, so all you need is a light touch. It's also best to make sure you are outside or in a well-ventilated area. It's also good to wear a respirator mask to protect yourself from the fumes. I even wore goggles and a mask while sanding. When you have finished carving the designs, you'll coat the hook in wood glue to prep for painting. I tried using Plastidip as a primer, but both the spray-on kind and the paint-on kind will melt your foam. I panicked when it started to melt mine, but it got fixed. Coat one side of your hook with wood glue, let it dry overnight, and then coat the other side. When it is dry, it is ready for paint. I used a tan spray paint to get the color I wanted. I don't recommend white because it will not look like what it is in the movie. Once the spray paint was dry, I took regular light brown paint, and with a very small brush I painted on all the carved designs so that they would stand out better. When that was finished, I used a technique called dry brushing to make the hook look aged and weathered. I used the brush you see here, and I didn't use water, hence the name, and I dabbed it into my brown paint and then tapped it onto the paper plate to remove the excess, and then just lightly swiped it across the hook. You don't want blobs of paint, you want lighter streaks. When I was satisfied with the light brown, I used a darker brown as well. When I was done and the paint was dry, I sprayed the hook with paint sealer and it was ready for the final step, adding rope to the handle. On Maui's hook, there are 3 pieces of rope around the very end. I did those pieces first. I added a line of hot glue to a piece and laid it carefully where I wanted it and held it until it was dry. Don't press too hard or the glue will squish out and you don't want the glue to be visible. When I was done with the very end, I began wrapping the hook in rope. I added glue to a few inches of rope and then pressed it very slowly and carefully, winding it around the handle. It's not hard, but you want to go slow so you don't make a mess. I left part of the handle that sticks out exposed. You'll see here in the photo, because that's what I saw in the pictures from the movie. Once you finish with the rope, your hook is done. So here's the finished product. This was the first prop I ever made, and I am extremely proud of how it turned out. And since this was my first prop and I somehow stumbled through, I know anyone else can do it too. If you use this tutorial and make an awesome hook, what can I say except you're welcome? Thank you so much for watching and listening. Bye!